Roman Reigns has returned for a new story that does have several similarities to something we've seen in the past. We'll also check out some issues fans are discussing with this specific story. Starting things off with another return from Roman Reigns. Roman was written off television back at Clash in Paris, following a big attack from the Vision. And now Roman returns several weeks later, here on September 29th, to get revenge on the Vision and to help Jimmy and Jey. Although it's always great to see Roman back on television since he is the company's biggest current star, there are some fans out there that aren't the biggest fans of the repetitive nature and how Roman is being used. Pretty much ever since April, Roman's departures and returns have followed a repetitive pattern. If Roman needs to be written off television for a bit, they have the Vision attack him and beat him up. And then when it's time for Roman to make a return, he does so by returning in the closing moments of a show to attack the Vision. So it's understandable that Roman versus the Vision is a long-term storyline, but the fans are correct there. That's been two writing methods that have been extremely repetitively used on Roman over the last few months. It would be nice to see him get written off and return in new different ways that aren't the exact same to what we've been seeing for several months now. So that is a minor issue the fans brought up here with this return, and it's true. How many times are we going to see the Vision write Roman off television with an attack, and then Roman returns to get revenge when he's ready? We've seen that scenario so many times in recent months, and it gets to a certain point where you catch on to the repetitive nature and want to see something a little fresh and a little different. But getting back to the entire storyline related matters here. The first big moment came from a backstage segment between Jimmy and Jey. Jimmy applied the pressure and questioned Jey on why he didn't help LA Knight the week prior. Jey said that helping LA Knight does nothing for him and doesn't get him anywhere. Jey noted how he got the win over LA Knight and how if he did more things like that, he'll be World Heavyweight Champion right now. Jey also burned Jimmy for not having any idea what it's like to be a World Heavyweight Champion. Jey told Jimmy that he loved him and they shook hands. So this segment once again reinforces that theme of Jey acting like Roman Reigns from the Thunderdome era. That version of Roman was brutally honest to his family members, a little bit manipulative, and he covered it all up by saying how much he loved them. That's exactly what we see here. Jey takes a huge personal shot at Jimmy for never holding any world titles, but expresses his love for him and dabs him up immediately right after. So you can see how that type of behavior could really mess with Jimmy's head right there. It's basically similar to what Roman first did to Jey in 2020. The power of being a world champion didn't get to Jey's head during his reign itself, but this conversation with Jimmy clearly shows that being world champion did get to Jey's head in current day. A lot of fans were theorizing how Jey felt like he was now a level ahead of his brother because of that world title victory. And while this backstage conversation here pretty much proved that theory to be true, Jey does view himself on a higher level than Jimmy since Jimmy doesn't know what it's like to be a world champion. It's harsh, it definitely stings, but that's who Jey is becoming, an egotistical driven character. And then we get to the main event of the night, a tornado tag team match between Jimmy and Jey versus the Brawns. Right as it looked like the Brawns were going to put Jimmy and Jey out of action for good, out came Roman Reigns to make the big save. Roman assists Jimmy and Jey in winning that match. And then the next big moments happens as Raw was going off air. Roman dabs up Jey and they start having an intense back and forth conversation. Roman tells Jey that Raw belongs to Jey and to forget everyone else. Jey echoes back to Roman how he can't trust anybody and how he needs to smash them all. All this is going on while Jimmy is a bit left out of the reunion. Jimmy is in the background looking very nervous as Roman continues to hype up Jey and lead him down that tyrant sort of path. So this moment establishes a lot of different things. This moment once again proved that Jey is falling into the same mindset as Roman, especially considering how Jey even used Roman's old catchphrase, talking about smashing them all. That's something Roman first started saying back in the Thunderdome, during that very brutal era of Roman's character. So to see Jey adapting parts of Roman's persona from that era, that's definitely something to fear. Jimmy has been saying for weeks now that Jey has been sounding and acting like Roman Reigns. And now after seeing that conversation between Roman and Jey right in front of his eyes, Jimmy has to be even more concerned. This moment also does make a few callbacks to some older moments from the Bloodline story, such as SummerSlam 2023, where Jimmy betrayed Jey and stopped him from defeating Roman for the world title. When asked to explain those actions, Jimmy said that he could see Jey slowly morphing into Roman Reigns, so he had to stop him from getting that world title, letting it all go to his head, and becoming evil as well. That's why Jimmy betrayed Jey in 2023. But in current day 2025, it's crazy that what Jimmy was trying to prevent all those years ago actually did happen. Jey became a world champion earlier in the year, and now we're starting to see the major ways in how that world title changed him, and went straight to his head for him to start acting like Roman Reigns. So that's a pretty insane callback right there. Jimmy predicted this happening to Jey back in 2023, and now 2 years later, and exactly what Jimmy feared is happening after all. So that could also explain Jimmy's facial expression during the end of this week's Raw. The moment that he feared happening was finally unfolding right in front of him. This September 29th edition of Raw also appeared to mirror some of the stories we saw from the Bloodline back in 2021, but slightly remixed. In 2021, Roman brought Jimmy back to help out. But similar concept, Roman and Jey were on the same page with each other, but Jimmy was not. Jimmy hesitated for weeks to fall in line under Roman, noting that he won't be anyone's lapdog and won't listen to orders. So that kind of feels like what we're seeing again right now in current day. Roman and Jey are on the same wavelength. They got that same mentality going of putting the family first and getting rid of anyone that's not family, while Jimmy right now doesn't really think like that. Jimmy even said it himself. He said that he enjoys helping people and he doesn't really see things the way Roman and Jey does. That's what's been causing this big disconnection over the last few weeks. And that's the importance of that final shot of Raw, to really highlight how Roman and Jey are on the same page, but how Jimmy is on a whole other page. He's in a whole other book. So although it's a big reunion for the original Bloodline, all these teasers lets us know that it won't be a smooth reunion. There's going to be lots of conflict that includes Roman and Jey trying to pull Jimmy into their mindset, taking Jimmy from that pure babyface role and trying to get him to enter that gray area, that anti-hero type of role, where you're not really a bad guy, but you certainly aren't a good guy either. That's basically where Roman and Jey are at right now as characters, and they're going to have to pull Jimmy into that same area if they want to be successful again as a family. It's definitely a bit too early to tell, but it really looks like Roman, Jimmy, and Jey will be on the same War Games team together this year. So if that's the plan, that means we can expect to see a lot of screen time together for the 3 original Bloodline members, with their main narrative being to convert Jimmy and get him on the same page as them in time for Survivor Series. Although things look like it can get messy between the 3 of them, they just reunited Jimmy and Jey just a few weeks ago after 2 years away from each other. So it seems very unlikely that they'll split them again so soon. So maybe the direction of the story will not be a breakup, but maybe it'll be more about Jimmy coming to understand the way Roman and Jey think. If Jimmy isn't getting with the program quick enough, maybe Roman and Jey could even look to replace Jimmy's spot. Lots of fans are discussing the idea of Jacob coming over and linking up with the Bloodline. Last time there was a big Bloodline reunion and battle, Jacob was standing on the opposite side of the original Bloodline. But with Roman and Jey getting a bit of that edge back to their personas, maybe Jacob is a good fit to link up with them. And maybe being replaced will be what puts the pressure on Jimmy to come to a decision and see things Roman and Jey's way. It may be a slightly repeated concept from 2021, but it's surely still interesting to see where it could all be headed towards. But what are your thoughts on today's stories? Leave your comments below, don't forget to subscribe with all notifications on, and leave a like if you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, guys.